Ownership of one's body is the most basic human right, yet it's the one most often ignored, questioned, or quietly taken away. From a young age, many people are taught to compromise their comfort to avoid conflict. Don't make a scene. Don't be rude. Don't overreact. Those messages sink deep, especially when it comes to physical boundaries. Over time, they blur the line between what is allowed and what is endured. When someone touches a body without permission, it's not a misunderstanding. It's a decision, a choice made in a moment that assumes access, entitlement, or power over another person's physical space. A body is not public property. It does not become available because of clothing, location, mood, alcohol, relationship status, or silence. Silence is not consent. Stillness is not permission. Freezing is not agreement. The body often reacts faster than the mind, especially in moments of surprise or fear. That pause, that inability to move or speak, is not weakness. It's biology. The nervous system choosing survival over confrontation. Yet society often misreads that pause as acceptance, shifting responsibility away from the person who crossed the line. Ownership of the body also means the right to decide how it is touched, when it is touched, and by whom. It means the right to say no without explaining, justifying, or softening the message. It means a person does not owe politeness to someone who disrespects their physical boundaries. Too often, people are expected to manage the comfort of the person making them uncomfortable. Smile it off. Laugh it away. Ignore it so things don't get awkward. That expectation protects the wrong people. When someone claims ownership over their body, it challenges long-standing assumptions. It disrupts environments where inappropriate behavior has been normalized as harmless, playful, or flattering. It forces accountability into spaces that prefer denial. That's why asserting bodily ownership is often met with resistance, defensiveness, or ridicule. The pushback isn't about confusion. It's about losing unchecked access. There is power in clarity. A clear boundary doesn't need to be loud to be firm. It doesn't need anger to be valid. Ownership of the body is not about dominance or aggression. It's about autonomy. It's about recognizing that every person has an invisible perimeter that deserves respect. Crossing that perimeter without consent is a violation, regardless of intent. Intent does not erase impact. A joke that involves unwanted touch is still unwanted. Familiarity does not grant permission. Authority does not grant permission. Attraction does not grant permission. Bodily ownership also includes the right to respond. Some respond with words, some with movement, some with silence followed by distance, some with physical defense when there is no other option. None of these responses revoke the original violation. The focus should never be on how the person reacted, but on why they had to react at all. Shifting attention to reaction is a way of avoiding responsibility for the action that caused it. Claiming ownership of one's body is an act of self-respect, but it's also an act of collective change. Every time a boundary is enforced, it redraws the rules of what is acceptable. It sends a message that access is not automatic. That touch is not a right. That bodies are not open invitations. These moments matter, even when they are quiet, even when they happen without witnesses, even when they are resolved in seconds. Respecting bodily ownership requires awareness and restraint. It requires listening when someone says stop and believing them the first time. It requires noticing nonverbal cues and choosing not to push past them. It requires understanding that comfort is not universal and that what feels harmless to one person can feel threatening to another. The responsibility lies with the person reaching out, not the one pulling away. When ownership of the body is honored, spaces become safer. People move more freely. Trust grows. When it is ignored, fear fills the gaps. Fear of being touched. Fear of being blamed. Fear of not being believed. Reclaiming ownership is not about living in fear, but about refusing to live in silence. It's about recognizing that the body is not something to negotiate over. It is not something to borrow. It is not something to test limits on. It belongs, entirely and without condition, to the person who lives inside it. The moment boundaries are crossed rarely announces itself. It doesn't come with warning signs or dramatic music. It slips in quietly, disguised as casual touch, a lingering hand, a step too close. 1 second, everything feels normal, and the next something is off. The body notices before the mind catches up. Shoulders tense. Breath shortens. Muscles lock. There's a sudden awareness of space being invaded, of control being taken without permission. That moment is sharp and confusing. Time stretches and compresses at the same time. Thoughts race, then disappear. Did that really just happen? Am I imagining it? Was it an accident? The brain scrambles for explanations because recognizing a boundary violation means facing discomfort, and discomfort is something people are trained to avoid, especially when the person crossing the line is familiar, respected, or socially protected, especially when calling it out would disrupt the room. Boundaries are crossed in seconds, but the impact can last much longer. A hand where it doesn't belong isn't just physical. It sends a message. It says your space is negotiable. Your comfort is secondary. Your body is available unless you actively defend it. That message lands even when no words are spoken. It lands even when the person crossing the line smiles or laughs or pretends nothing happened. In that moment, many people freeze. Not because they agree, but because the brain is processing threat. Fight, flight, or freeze isn't a choice. It's a reflex. Freezing buys time. It's the nervous system trying to assess danger and avoid escalation. Yet freezing is often misunderstood. Observers see stillness and assume consent. The person who crossed the boundary may take silence as approval, or worse, as encouragement. That misinterpretation adds another layer of harm. There is also the internal pressure to minimize the moment. It was probably nothing. I don't want to overreact. I don't want to cause a scene. These thoughts don't come from nowhere. They are learned, reinforced by stories where victims are blamed for being dramatic, sensitive, or difficult, reinforced by environments that protect comfort over accountability. The moment a boundary is crossed, the burden often shifts to the person violated to manage everyone else's feelings. Sometimes the crossing happens in public, surrounded by noise and people. Sometimes it happens in private, where there are no witnesses to validate what occurred. In both cases, the isolation is real. Even in a crowded room, that moment can feel deeply lonely. The world keeps moving while something fundamental has just been disrupted. Laughter continues. Conversations overlap. The person affected is left holding an experience no one else seems to notice. What makes boundary crossings particularly damaging is how quickly they are dismissed. A hand brushed, it doesn't matter. A grip held a little too long. A comment paired with touch. Each incident might seem small in isolation, but the body doesn't experience them as small. The body records them, stores them, learns from them. It learns when to tense, when to skin exits, when to stay alert in spaces that should feel safe. Crossing a boundary is not about misunderstanding signals. It's about ignoring them. People communicate discomfort in countless ways. Leaning away, pulling back, going quiet, avoiding eye contact. These cues are clear to anyone paying attention. When someone pushes past them, it's not confusion. It's disregard. The idea that boundaries must be verbally announced to be valid places an unfair burden on the person being touched rather than the one doing the touching. That moment also reveals power dynamics. Who feels entitled to touch? Who feels pressured to tolerate it? Who is believed afterward? Boundaries are more likely to be crossed when there is an imbalance of power, status, or social leverage. The risk isn't equal. The consequences aren't equal. That imbalance shapes how the moment unfolds and how it's remembered. For some, the boundary crossing triggers past experiences. The body recognizes the pattern even if the mind tries to stay present. Old fear surfaces. Old helplessness. The reaction might seem outsized to outsiders, but it isn't about just one moment. It's about all the moments stacked behind it. Each new violation taps into a history the body never forgot. The moment boundaries are crossed is the moment safety is broken. Not destroyed forever, but cracked. Trust doesn't vanish all at once. It erodes. It becomes conditional. People start calculating risks in ordinary interactions. Standing farther away. Keeping arms crossed. Watching hands. These are not overreactions. They are adaptations to a world where boundaries are not consistently respected. Recognizing that moment for what it is matters. Naming it matters. Not to create drama, but to restore reality. Because when boundary crossings are minimized, they multiply. When they are challenged, even quietly, the rules begin to change. The moment may be brief, but it reveals exactly how much respect is present in a space, and how quickly it can disappear when no one is watching. The freeze response and silent fear are often misunderstood because they don't look dramatic. There is no shouting, no pushing away, no visible struggle. From the outside, it can look like nothing happened at all. Inside, everything is happening at once. The body locks up, breath becomes shallow, and thoughts fragment. This reaction is not a failure to act. It is the nervous system stepping in when the mind is overwhelmed. Freezing is a survival response rooted deep in biology. When the brain senses threat and cannot immediately fight or flee, it freezes. Muscles stiffen, voice disappears, movement slows or stops. This response has protected humans for thousands of years, yet in modern social situations, it is often judged harshly. People ask why nothing was said, why no resistance was shown, why the moment wasn't stopped. These questions miss the point. The freeze response is not chosen. It happens before choice is even available. Silent fear can be louder than words inside the body. Heart rate spikes. Hearing narrows. Time distorts. The mind may detach, creating a sense of distance from the body as a way to cope. This dissociation helps the person endure the moment, but it can also make recall difficult later. Details blur. Sequences feel out of order. That lack of clarity is sometimes used to discredit experiences, even though it is a common trauma response. The expectation to react perfectly in a threatening moment is unrealistic and unfair. People are not action heroes. They are humans navigating complex social environments where the threat may be subtle, familiar, or socially risky to confront. The fear is not just physical. It includes fear of embarrassment, retaliation, disbelief, or escalation. The body calculates these risks in seconds and chooses what it believes will minimize harm. Silence in these moments is often a form of self-protection. Speaking up can feel dangerous when the person crossing the line holds power, authority, or social influence. Silence can feel like the safest option when the environment does not feel supportive. That silence does not mean acceptance. It means the person is trying to survive the moment with the least possible damage. After the moment passes, many people replay it endlessly. Why didn't I move? Why didn't I say something? Why did I just stand there? Shame creeps in, layered on top of fear. That shame is misplaced. It comes from cultural narratives that value confrontation over survival and action over instinct. In reality, the body did exactly what it was designed to do under stress. Silent fear doesn't always end when the moment ends. It can linger, showing up later as tension, anxiety, or hypervigilance. The body remembers even when the mind wants to forget. Certain sounds, spaces, or gestures can trigger the same freeze response again, long after the original incident. This is not weakness. It is the nervous system staying alert to prevent future harm. People who freeze are often told they should have done more. That message reinforces self-blame and discourages future disclosure. When silence is interpreted as consent or indifference, it protects the person who caused harm and isolates the person who experienced it. Understanding the freeze response shifts the focus back where it belongs, on the behavior that triggered it. Silent fear also explains why some people appear calm on the outside during boundary violations. Calm does not equal comfort. Stillness does not equal permission. The absence of resistance does not mean the presence of consent. These assumptions are dangerous because they excuse violations and set unrealistic standards for how distress must look to be believed. Education about the freeze response changes how moments are interpreted. It allows people to see stillness as a signal, not a green light. It encourages bystanders to intervene rather than assume everything is fine. It teaches those who freeze that their response was valid, even if it didn't match what they wish they had done. Recognizing silent fear also requires listening differently, not just to words, but to pauses, body language, and changes in behavior. Someone who withdraws, avoids contact, or becomes suddenly quiet may be communicating discomfort. Respecting boundaries means responding to these cues without needing them to be spelled out. The freeze response is not a flaw to overcome. It is a built-in alarm system that activates when safety is compromised. Blaming people for freezing is like blaming someone for flinching. It misunderstands how the body works under stress. When people are supported rather than judged for their reactions, healing becomes possible. Silent fear deserves acknowledgement, not dismissal. It deserves compassion, not scrutiny. When society understands that not all harm is loud, it becomes harder to hide behind the absence of noise. The quiet moments matter. The stillness matters. The reactions that go unseen are often the ones that reveal just how threatening the situation truly was. Consent is non-negotiable, yet it is often treated like a suggestion rather than a rule. People talk about it as if it is complicated, when in reality it is simple. Consent means a clear, willing, and ongoing agreement. Anything less is not consent. It does not depend on mood, clothing, past behavior, or relationship status. It does not appear automatically because two people are in the same space. It must be present every time, without pressure or assumption. One of the most common ways consent is undermined is by shifting responsibility. Instead of asking, people assume. Instead of checking in, they push forward until someone stops them. This approach places the burden on the person being touched to object, rather than on the person initiating contact to ensure permission. That imbalance creates situations where silence is misread, discomfort is ignored, and boundaries are crossed. Consent cannot exist in an environment of fear or pressure. If someone feels unsafe, intimidated, or worried about consequences, their ability to freely agree is compromised. Power dynamics matter. Authority, physical size, social status, or emotional leverage can all influence whether someone feels able to say no. Ignoring these dynamics allows coercion to hide behind the appearance of choice. There is a difference between compliance and consent. Compliance is doing something to avoid conflict, embarrassment, or harm. Consent is choosing something because you want to. The body knows the difference, even when the situation is framed as mutual. A person may go along with something while feeling disconnected, tense, or trapped. That internal resistance is a signal that consent is not truly present. Consent is also ongoing. Agreeing once does not mean agreeing forever. People are allowed to change their minds at any point, for any reason. They do not need to explain or justify that change. Treating consent as a one-time transaction ignores the reality that comfort levels shift and boundaries evolve. Respect means being attentive to those shifts, not resentful of them. The idea that consent ruins spontaneity is often used to dismiss its importance. In truth, consent creates safety, and safety allows genuine connection. When both people know that boundaries will be respected, there is room for trust and ease. Without consent, any interaction is built on uncertainty, where one person's comfort is sacrificed for another's desire. Non-negotiable consent also means listening to nonverbal cues. Not everyone communicates discomfort with words. Pulling away, tensing up, going quiet, or avoiding eye contact are all forms of communication. Ignoring these signals because they are not spoken aloud is a choice. Respect requires attention, not just hearing. When consent is ignored, the impact goes beyond the moment. It affects how people move through the world. It teaches them to be guarded, to doubt their instincts, to question whether their boundaries will be honored. Over time, this erodes trust not just in others, but in oneself. People begin to wonder if they are allowed to want what they want, or refuse what they do not. Teaching consent as non-negotiable is not about policing behavior. It is about setting a baseline for respect. It is about understanding that access to another person's body is a privilege, not a right. That privilege must be actively granted, not assumed. When this principle is normalized, violations become harder to excuse. There is also accountability in non-negotiable consent. When someone crosses a line, the focus should be on their action, not on how the other person responded. Questions like why didn't you say no or why didn't you leave shift blame away from the violation itself. They imply that consent is something that must be defended rather than something that must be obtained. Consent applies in all contexts, not just romantic or sexual ones. It matters in casual interactions, professional spaces, and social gatherings. A hand on a shoulder, a hug, a grip around the waist all require awareness and permission. Minimizing these interactions as harmless ignores how often they are used to test boundaries. When consent is treated as non-negotiable, it sets a clear standard. It removes ambiguity. It makes it easier for people to trust their instincts and speak up when something feels wrong. It also makes it harder for harmful behavior to hide behind excuses or misunderstandings. Consent is not a gray area unless people insist on making it one. At its core, it is about respect, attention, and the willingness to prioritize another person's autonomy over one's own impulses. Calm strength over loud aggression challenges the idea that power must be noisy to be effective. Many people equate strength with volume, force, or intimidation, but true strength often appears controlled and deliberate. It doesn't rush. It doesn't posture. It responds with precision rather than impulse. In moments of threat or boundary violation, this kind of strength can be more unsettling and more effective than shouting or swinging wildly. Loud aggression is easy to recognize. It draws attention. It signals anger and urgency. Sometimes it is necessary, especially when immediate danger is present. But it also carries risks. It can escalate situations quickly, attract unwanted retaliation, or shift focus away from the original violation. In some environments, loud reactions are judged more harshly than the behavior that triggered them. The person who raises their voice may be labeled unstable or overreactive, while the initial act is minimized or ignored. Calm strength operates differently. It is grounded. It is aware. It comes from understanding one's boundaries and being willing to enforce them without losing control. This kind of strength communicates certainty. A steady voice, a firm grip, a measured response can stop behavior in its tracks because it leaves no room for negotiation. There is clarity and calmness that aggression often lacks. This approach also disrupts expectations. Many people who cross boundaries rely on confusion, hesitation, or politeness to get away with it. They may expect silence or nervous laughter. When met with calm resistance, their assumptions collapse. They are forced to confront the reality of their actions without the distraction of chaos. Calm strength removes their cover. There is also a misconception that calm responses mean the situation was not serious. In reality, staying calm in the face of violation often requires immense self-control. It means regulating fear, anger, and adrenaline at the same time. It means choosing effectiveness over emotional release. That choice does not diminish the harm done. It reflects a focus on stopping it. Calm strength is not passive. It does not mean tolerating harm or letting things slide. It means acting with intention. Sometimes that action is physical defense executed efficiently. Sometimes it is a firm verbal boundary delivered without apology. Sometimes it is removing oneself from the situation while making it clear why. Each of these responses asserts control without creating unnecessary escalation. People who respond calmly are often judged unfairly afterward. If there was no visible struggle, others may question whether the response was justified. This scrutiny ignores the reality that calm responses are often chosen precisely to prevent further harm. The absence of chaos does not mean the absence of threat. It means the threat was handled. Calm strength also protects the person responding. Loud aggression can leave emotional fallout, regret, or consequences that compound the original harm. A controlled response can preserve dignity and reduce the likelihood of blame being shifted. In systems that scrutinize behavior closely, calmness is often taken more seriously than outrage, even when outrage is understandable. There is a gendered expectation tied to reactions as well. Some are expected to be quiet and accommodating, others expected to be dominant and forceful. Calm strength breaks those scripts. It allows individuals to respond in ways that align with their safety and values rather than societal expectations. It recognizes that survival and self-respect are not performative. This form of strength is learned. It comes from knowing one's limits and trusting one's instincts. It is built through awareness, preparation, and sometimes training. It is not about being fearless. Fear can exist alongside calm action. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to function despite it. Calm strength also sends a powerful message to bystanders. It demonstrates that boundaries can be enforced without spectacle. It models a response that others can recognize and respect. Over time, this shifts cultural expectations about how power looks. It becomes less about dominance and more about control and accountability. Choosing calm strength does not invalidate other responses. Everyone reacts differently under stress, and all responses deserve understanding. But recognizing the effectiveness of calm, controlled action expands the options available to people. It counters the false belief that only loud or violent reactions are legitimate. In situations where safety is compromised, the goal is not to win or prove a point. The goal is to stop the behavior and restore control. Calm strength prioritizes that outcome. It strips away excuses and leaves the focus where it belongs, on the action that crossed the line and the boundary that will not be crossed again. Reclaiming personal power often begins after it feels like it has been taken. It starts in the quiet aftermath, when the body is safe again, but the mind keeps replaying what happened. Power does not always disappear in one dramatic moment. Sometimes it erodes through small violations, dismissed discomfort, and learned silence. Reclaiming it means recognizing that something was lost and deciding it will not stay that way. Personal power is not about control over others. It is about control over oneself. It is the ability to trust your instincts, honor your boundaries, and act in alignment with your values. When boundaries are crossed, that trust can fracture. People begin to question their reactions, their perceptions, and their right to respond. Reclaiming power involves rebuilding that trust piece by piece. One of the first steps is naming the experience honestly. Minimizing what happened might feel easier, but it keeps power out of reach. Saying to yourself that a line was crossed, that discomfort was real, that fear made sense helps restore clarity. Clarity is a form of power. It counters gaslighting, whether it comes from others or from within. Reclaiming power also means letting go of misplaced shame. Shame often attaches itself to experiences where control was compromised, even though the responsibility lies elsewhere. It whispers that you should have known better, reacted faster, been stronger. These thoughts do not serve healing. Releasing them creates space for self-compassion, which is not weakness but resilience. Boundaries play a central role in reclaiming power. Setting them, enforcing them, and respecting them in yourself and others strengthens a sense of agency. Each time a boundary is honored, the nervous system learns that safety is possible. Each time a boundary is enforced, confidence grows. Power is built through repetition, not sudden transformation. Reclaiming personal power also looks different for different people. For some, it involves speaking out. For others, it means seeking support, therapy, or community. Some find power through physical training, others through creative expression or advocacy. There is no single path. What matters is that the choice comes from within rather than from pressure or expectation. It is also important to understand that reclaiming power is not linear. There may be days of strength followed by days of doubt. Triggers can resurface old feelings without warning. This does not mean progress is lost. It means the body and mind are still learning. Power is not the absence of vulnerability. It is the ability to navigate vulnerability without being defined by it. Support plays a crucial role in this process. Being believed, listened to, and respected can accelerate the return of power. Isolation, on the other hand, can deepen the sense of loss. Sharing experiences with trusted people can transform private pain into shared understanding. This does not require public disclosure. Even one safe listener can make a difference. Reclaiming power also involves redefining strength. Strength is not just endurance. It is discernment. It is knowing when to engage and when to walk away. It is recognizing that self-protection is not selfish. Choosing distance from people or environments that disregard boundaries is an act of power, even when it feels difficult. There is also power in preparation. Learning about boundaries, consent, and self-defense can restore a sense of control. Preparation does not mean expecting harm. It means trusting yourself to handle situations if they arise. This knowledge can reduce fear and increase confidence in one's ability to respond. Reclaiming personal power does not require confrontation with the person who caused harm. Closure is not something that can always be obtained externally. Power can be reclaimed internally through acceptance, understanding, and intentional change. Waiting for apologies or acknowledgement can keep power tied to someone else's actions. Over time, reclaimed power shows up in subtle ways. In how you stand, in how you speak, in how quickly you notice discomfort and respond to it. These changes may not be dramatic, but they are meaningful. They reflect a restored connection to self. Personal power is not about becoming unbreakable. It is about becoming self-aware and self-directed. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your body, your boundaries, and your worth. When power is reclaimed, it does not erase the past, but it reshapes the future, allowing you to move forward with intention rather than fear.